Okay, recording. Um, okay, yeah, so some things I want to reiterate about the Middle Ages, mainly in terms of the furniture and the really what was going on with furniture and interiors. Um, I showed you an image of the Bayeux tapestry, which is a pretty simple tapestry as tapestries go. I think I'm going to bring up later on. I'll bring up a video of what tapestry weaving actually looks like, because there are places in Europe, really everywhere, but mostly like there are some places in Europe that have been doing it. They've been in operation for centuries, and there's still making tapestries in those places. Um, and The reason tapestries are important for the Middle Ages is that the lifestyle of anyone, especially even the wealthy, was nomadic. So it was a much simpler. The people who had places to go, like different estates, different houses. This was for the wealthy, and these are the people who were commissioning the kinds of tapestries and furniture that we look at. They had to make sure that things were portable. So something like a tapestry that was, that is a fabric piece that can be rolled up is a lot easier to move than a large painting on panel. In those days, they would have used wooden panels for the paintings. So furniture was also made to be portable. There's some different types that are introduced. Like the one type of furniture that was introduced in the Middle Ages, the armoire, which is like a wardrobe, a tall chest, like a tall cabinet with doors that open, where clothing might be stored. That's a new type that appears in the Middle Ages. There are some like same kinds of things like chests for transporting belongings. I mentioned the stepped buffet that is in one of these illuminated manuscripts, and I'll show you some of those things again. That's an important piece of furniture because it was related to someone's status. The more steps you had for displaying your valuables, the more important a person you were. Now, some people could just get a buffet with more steps and try to claim a higher status than they actually had, and sometimes that would work, sometimes it would not. The throne, or like seat of honor, which is something that really goes back to really back to antiquity. We've always had this, a place where the most important person sits, or an important person sits. And of course, in like the Middle Ages, it really would take the form of a throne. The Roman Sella chair, which is the folding chair used by the magistrates. If you look in the discussion board, Hope put up a really good thread about that piece of furniture. That chair was still being used. It sort of like got the idea kind of got picked up for some other furniture, like folding furniture. Like tonight, I'll talk about a chair called the Savonarola chair, which is late Middle Ages, early modern era, which is a wooden chair that is really based on the same design. So this design keeps on coming through. Upholstery starts to appear. Not the greatest upholstery, but they do start to cushion with they would stuff it with straw, with hay, with feathers, anything to like make the padding soft in there. Springs in upholstery, like metal sprung upholstery, doesn't appear until the early part of the 19th century. So we've got a ways before there was actually like the upholstery as we know it. Beds, of course. Beds, everyone needs a place to sleep, and you get these tall beds with the canopies and curtains that could close the sleeper off from the room. And in some interiors, you had people who were the wealthiest would create these sort of showrooms in their main houses, where like you might have like a room set up, like a bedroom set up, which you wouldn't actually sleep in. It was just for people to see. You would never use it, so it was always in really great. It was always in great order. So this idea of interiors for show starts to come up. Lighting is fire. It's candles. Candles or torches, and no. And the reason we know what people had is that there is a record. There are records of some of an inventory of the belongings of someone with an estate that was really like worth writing things down for, either for tax purposes, for one's heirs. When someone died, they needed to know what the person had and who it was going to. Okay. Most furniture is not elaborate. The emphasis is on portable, not luxurious. Silks and tapestries are common. And some of the exotic woods, like African woods that were used by the Romans, were not available. So oak was a common, any common local wood, oak and walnut are used often. And one type of space that was safer than the most, and one of the reasons we have some furniture saved, is that monasteries and churches were, being religious places. It was a little bit less likely that if there was some neighboring rival invaded your territory, took your land from you, it was less likely that they would attack a church or a monastery, because of course, if you do that, you're tempting the wrath of God, and you don't want to do that. So it's sorry, Elliot is right here. A more strictly religious time, and one of the I guess it's one of the features of the era of the Middle Ages, especially the late Middle Ages, the Black Death or the bubonic plague, that was very devastating to the population. The estimate is that it killed about 200 million people, somewhere around 200 million. So it was very serious. They had no protection against it, really, and really no understanding of how to treat it. So we're fortunate now that we can deal with viruses, even though they still are very disruptive when it's a new one and we don't have any immunity to it. Okay. All right. Okay, so now I want to talk about, let's see. Let's do, let me go back to, I'm going to share the screen and give you, not that, that. All right, so what I've just said about the Middle Ages. Can you see this?
No, I can't see anything yet.
Okay, I think that the screen share didn't quite work. Let's try that again. Better?
Yes, that's working.
Right.
Yep, I can see it now. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. All right. So you can see these interiors are pretty sparse. I mean, the spaces are very large, and they also didn't fill them up unless they were using them. Now here, this chair, the canopy above the king's head here, this is called a sparver. It's kind of like a cone-shaped canopy, which is another way of highlighting the importance of the seat, which highlights the importance of the person using the seat. Hope, you did the Sella Kyrillos entry for the discussion board. What do you think of that chair compared to the Sella Kyrillos? Is she here? I didn't even look to see if you're here. I just assumed you were. Oh no, maybe she's not here. Oh well. Well, I think it has a common appearance. That's what I think. So here is your stepped buffet. I know I pointed this out last time, but I wanted to reiterate it. This back here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's a 5-stepper. That's a pretty important person. But you can see here with like this throne chair is up on its own stepped surface, raising this important person up to a higher level. So this is the hierarchy was very, very important at this time. Now I'm going to come down here. And again, so here is a bed, this canopy bed. And you can see here there is all of this, like, I think it's in this one, you can see there's some of this trompe l'oeil painting, the illusionistic painting, that this is like a tapestry hanging on the wall, and it's not. You can see from the side here, this wall here, you can see that it's not really tacked up to the wall. It is just painted on the wall. You can see here, this is some furniture that we'll talk about with the Renaissance, the Italian Renaissance. Okay, well, I wanted to make sure we talked a little bit more about that furniture because it is kind of important. It's important. I think it's an important feature of the how things were, like, I guess, how people lived. Okay, now, so the this period of time called the Renaissance, you see a much higher degree of realism in representation of the human figure. And a lot happened. I mentioned the bubonic plague, which was in the late 14th century, so like the middle of the 1300s. The fact that it wiped out the I'm just going to stop there. I can't really finish that thought. Okay, so excuse me. So here is a Palazzo Medici. Boop, 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 boop. There we go. So the Medici family, something that's important about this period of time with the on the Italian peninsula, the Medici were a family that patronized the arts and architecture, and they had a lot of money. They were merchants. They were really in competition with the Vatican for influence, and it's an early, it's a good example of how you start to get a patron of the arts and architecture that is not the church. So the Catholic Church, which really we get more of a separation of like the Roman Catholic Church when you get Protestants, the Protestant Reformation happens in the in the early 16th century, which starts up in Germany. So here, so the Medici family had a lot of money to put into commissioning art and architecture as they wanted it. You can see this curving arch, which compares to the pointed arch of the Gothic era. It is a Roman arch. So a lot of things happened. There was a lot of reclaiming, rediscovery of ancient texts of the Romans and the Greeks, and with the there were a lot of factors that led to there being a greater emphasis on science, on humanism, and focusing on the world we live in as opposed to the spiritual world after death. The Middle Ages was more about, endure this life and get to the afterlife. That's when it's going to be good. The Renaissance is really more about, let's make this as good as we can. Why should we be miserable just waiting for the afterlife? There was a lot, there's more to it than that. That's a great simplification, but there is a difference in the appearance of things. There's also a difference in the attitude toward knowledge. For example, Leonardo da Vinci, who was you may have heard of Leonardo. Has anyone heard of Leonardo da Vinci?
Yes.
Who was
Yes.
Leonardo
Yes.
da Vinci? Who was he? Anybody? Just some idea.
An artist and a sculptor.
Yes, artist and sculptor. He was Italian from this time period.
An inventor?
And an inventor, definitely.
I'm sorry, who are we talking about?
I'd asked if anyone knows anything about Leonardo da Vinci.
Oh, okay.
So one of the things that, Leonardo da Vinci he was interested in understanding things. So he was interested in human anatomy. He created you might see like the Vitruvian Man, which is, the figure of the male figure standing hands out, fitting inside a square, and then spread eagle fitting inside a circle. One of the things that Leonardo da Vinci accurately, changed is the understanding of how we see. The Middle Ages was still using this ancient notion that when you look out at the world, light is projected somehow from your eyes, and that's how you can see things. I'm not sure how they accounted for nighttime. But Leonardo da Vinci said, no, it's the opposite. Light comes in, our eye receives light. when it's nighttime, there's less light, so we can't see as well. So it was really more like this sort of like resurgence of rational thought. Now, this architecture that is Roman, because you can see the curved arch, you can see the triangular pediment, which is a Greek, like a Greco-Roman giveaway. You can see the lower part of the building has this heavy, rougher surface. That technique in architecture, you can see it really wasn't necessary to create that textured surface. The upper part of the building is doing just fine. Rustication, making it rustic, is when a surface of stone is either left rough or chiseled to create a worn appearance. You'll see this technique of rustication come back in later neoclassical periods throughout the centuries. Okay, now here, a detail. Corbels are these projections under here. They give the appearance of supporting the roof, but they're not actually doing anything. It's pretty rare that a corbel is doing anything significant to hold up this like roof or balcony above it. It's a decorative element. You can see there's this very large, almost like this really large egg and dart, sort of like an approximation of an egg and dart band up here, and these dentils that come off of Greek columns. So they're definitely these classical elements, but in the Renaissance they were reclaiming it, but they were also using it in a new way. The plan is set up a little bit like a Roman house, like a Roman villa, with this courtyard. So it's a sort of this secluded courtyard. You can see again these semicircular arches on the windows. And the Gothic churches used the same idea of a bigger arch and then two smaller arches, but the difference is that these are rounded and Gothic arches are pointed. But this looks very much like some Roman buildings, and you can see they're using this what really is a composite capital. They're not using like really old style like Greek orders, but this like the composite is like this like kind of like an embellished Corinthian capital. Let's go to here now. These doors in the Ducal Palace in Urbino, which is another small city in northern Italy. This technique on these doors is intarsia, which is an Italian technique of decorative veneering similar to marquetry, which is something we'll see with the Paris, the French, and normally using small pieces of wood to create images or designs on a flat surface. So these doors, like this is just different colors of wood. It's not painted, it's not stained. These are cut pieces of wood, fit together very tightly, and that's and they just do this veneer over the top of the wood that the door is made from. It is, as with many of these old techniques, it is tedious and time-consuming. Okay, so here, this is an Italian interior. So the year, you see the year 1464 for this architecture. You can see there's a tapestry on the wall, and these really kind of like almost like there should be a column or some kind of like there should be some like structural element here, but it's sealed up in the wall if it's there at all. There's this wreath, these wreaths, these sort of like festoons of fruit and flowers, corbels down here, this big sort of here, like a trapezoid shape of the chimney for the above the fireplace is pretty typical of Renaissance interiors. And you can see this, the mantelpiece is just like, it looks like architecture. It's the upper, it's like the entablature of a temple. Now this chair here, we will come back to later. So here, this, all right, so there are several things, I guess in terms of image, lots of things going on here. These little winged babies are called either, well, some people will call them putai, like little babies, but amorini is the word that I would normally use for them, and they get used a lot. It is like an old, it's a lot of the Renaissance stuff just comes off of Roman and gets an update. Okay, and here this interior from Milan, you can see the use of those amorini here, little guys, urns with fruit and flowers in them, more of these corbels, and you can see this is just this massive architectural, almost like, you know, like it's an entablature off of a temple. Savonarola chair. Up here also a coffered ceiling. You see this like woodwork for this ceiling, which is really quite beautiful. Coffered ceilings were common in Renaissance architecture. Tapestry. Very detailed tapestry after a painting by Raphael, who was a painter of the late Renaissance. You can see here they're using this very old guilloche border. There's this interesting like monochrome scene below, and they're creating aspects of perspective where you can see it's like there's change in scale, there's depth. It's really like a virtuoso piece. There's just so much going on that is realistic, and this is all woven threads. Here's another interior. The term, this is how it's spelled, the approximation, my French is not the greatest, trompe l'oeil, and that is a style of painting. It was, you know, first we saw it in Roman painting from Pompeii, and it was really taken to a higher degree in the Italian Renaissance because they achieved a greater sophistication of realism on par with what the Greeks achieved in sculpture, but they achieved it in painting. So the drapery, this fabric is like, you can see the shift from here to here. It's just painted on the wall. This lozenge, sort of like a diamond shape, was used really almost like a little like break in a pattern in the Renaissance. Just in terms of shape, you also see this oval up here in this frieze of low relief. That's something that was used Renaissance and afterward in what's called Baroque. Okay, so here is some interior with some furniture. This is, I showed you this once before, for the earlier, I think when we were talking about Pompeii, this hall of perspective, this wall back here is not open to the exterior. That is a flat wall with an illusionistic painting. So the trompe-l'oeil technique is illusionistic. It's not that it's supposed to look like something real. It's supposed to make you believe that it is real. And that's a big difference. If I ask you to give me a definition of trompe-l'oeil and you say it's something that looks real, that's not really the complete answer. It's illusionistic. It means the term literally means to fool the eye. So it is meant to make someone believe that something is real. So here is a masterpiece of intarsia technique with perspective. This is all flat surfaces, all wood veneer. So the intarsia technique is to cut all these pieces, different types of wood, different colors of wood, different sizes, all fitting in to create this appearance of this, decorative surface. And in this case, that if you stand in one spot, you will get this illusion of 3 dimensions. If you move, it blows the illusion because you don't see it at the right angle. But it's impressive. This is one of those things where, the patron was really just showing off. Like I can get the best craftspeople, the best guys to come and make the most impressive intarsia decoration you have ever seen. Even this, like this little door that looks like it's open, there's no door there. This is a flat wall. Remarkable. This is this is what you did with the height of your technology, and it was really like what people made with their hands. So this term grotesque, you see this like Roman, this decorative ornament that is called grotesque, and it's decorative work using incongruous human and animal figures with scrolls and garlands, the leaves and vines and flowers, also called arabesque. The term grotesque comes from grotto, which is some maybe even like a symbolic place or a mystical place that has a water source. And the reason that I guess the reason it is called grotesque or that it is that is related to a grotto is that there was a Roman site that is believe it was in a residence of the Emperor Nero that was discovered. It has, there we go. Golden House of Nero, 1st century CE. This is some grotesque, some fresco decoration, and you can see there is this basically it's like the architecture is built over a grotto, and so it's because this decoration comes from this place, and this by the painter Raphael. Much later, it looks very much like the same stuff. I mean, they really were just lifting the idea right from the Romans. There was a great deal of pride in reclaiming reclaiming Roman techniques, Roman architectural achievements. I mean, they'd been around Rome. Rome had been there all this time, and having this breakthrough where they could actually do it again was very, very important. Now this loggia by Raphael. So what that means, the term loggia is like this, or like it's like an enclosed. It's enclosed on 3 sides. To the left of this image, you see light coming in. That's to the outside. You can't really do this kind of a space in a climate like Chicago, where it's going to get cold and wintry for a significant chunk of the year. But in a more temperate place, you can do it. And really quite beautiful, isn't it? So you can see there's this low relief, there we go, like stucco. I mean, in the 70s, stucco was like nasty, just like people like putting gross texture onto a wall. But the Italians of this era made some pretty beautiful carvings in it. It's very soft and very easy to carve. Plaster is. And you can see some of that up there too. Impressive, like, this is all this like fresco that's done on a ceiling. You gotta have, they're on their backs doing this. And with fresco, you have to paint quickly because it's in wet plaster and the plaster is drying while you work. You've got some working time, but it's not like you have you don't have forever. Furniture. All right, so a cassone is a big storage chest, and you see this like very specific piece of furniture appear in the Italian peninsula in this period of time. And you can see some of these classical elements, like this big lion's paw, this rinceau, really, this sort of like little curve of a vine with these little medallion flowers. There's some egg and dart underneath there. I like this sort of like scaly looking, it looks kind of like a dragon. But there's an acanthus leaf up here. This is kind of like a backwards corbel. More egg and dart. Looks like some bead and real ornament. Once they started getting this going, they really just started throwing everything at it. They even just got a nice little, maybe tempera painting. On wood, it would have been tempera. And here's a smaller cassone with this relief carving here. Mythology, this is looks like Hercules, and you see this crest, or it's a cartouche in the center. Look, sphinxes. A Casablanca is similar to a cassone, but it's really more like a wooden sofa, and people didn't call them sofas then. But this would have had, you can see there's a keyhole here, so there would have been storage in the seat. I'm going to guess, they would put cushions down here. I know they would put cushions down here. That would be maybe not so comfortable just sitting on the wood, but pretty impressive, but not very portable. This would be the kind of furniture that might just stay in place. Small hinge top, fall front writing cabinet, like a little cabinet with a writing surface on it. It looks Chinese in some respects, and the Italians did have a connection to China through Marco Polo and what was called the Silk Road. They opened trade with Asia in the Middle Ages. This is a cupboard with grotesque decoration. So grotesque has come to mean weird, scary, monstrous, or somehow, and possibly it's just because of the way they applied this, because some of this, like this guy some of this does look kind of scary looking, or just kind of creepy, weird, cool, depending on how you feel about it. Again, you've got this like little mini architecture in miniature. This is like the upper part or the entablature of a temple. And again, architecture. And you have these urn finials up here. This is like finial is something that is like placed at the top. Also, the pediment, with the triangular pediment of a temple. In the Renaissance, you start getting this playing around with it. Michelangelo had a lot of fun with it when he did this. This broken pediment, it's instead of a triangular pediment, they would sometimes have a semicircular, like a half circle. Sometimes they would curve it and then put a little notch in it. So the pediment, this broken pediment with these scrolls, this starts to become more and more common. There's some drapery of some fabric here, urn finials, little alcoves for sculptures. Much so. This is a simpler, more utilitarian cover, but still has the big lion feet on it. Now here, the Savonarola chair is I guess it's a relative of the Sella-Kyrillus. Maybe you could say it's a relative of the Egyptian furniture. It has this crossing, beautiful stuff. I mean, it's like this just really beautiful repetition of this curve that where like each of the pieces going in the different directions alternate so that they don't run into each other. And then you could have a rod through the center here where this could fold. You see little like pins where this thing could fold up. And there we have a Sella-Kyrillus from a gravestone. Just a minute, I'm going to close my window. The neighbor's doggies are a little loud. Well, it is. Okay. This funky-looking piece of furniture is a scabello, mostly made out of flat pieces of wood, and really these cut shapes that are joined together. Kind of cool, kind of weird looking. Little tiny seat, probably meant to straddle it. And then here a sedia or upholstered armchair. And again, with these just like really just flat shapes of wood that have a little bit of detail on the a little bit of contouring, but mostly just flat pieces of wood. And the real work was saved for the fabric upholstery.
Excuse me, Duffy?
Yes.
In the previous slide, that little tiny chair, what would that chair be generally used
This one?
for? Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you for sure.
Fair enough.
I'm going to see if I can find out. Because
Okay,
it's,
thank you.
yeah. But I think it's a good question because it's not this chair. So the completely different design does suggest that it was for a different use. It is possible with a very small, narrow seat, it was meant it was maybe meant to be sat on for a specific purpose, maybe sitting on it backwards. I don't know. Now I really want to know.
Yeah, it's just such an interesting shape, so that's why I was curious.
Yeah. But even that, just looking at it, it makes me think that like it's it looks like it does have a more specific purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here, how's about that canopy and that bed? little cradle for a little baby, some upholstered stools, and some crazy columns, and this gigantic cartouche up here. So there is this twisty column. You can see this like kind of like a twisted column. I'll show you this in the next presentation. But there was this twisted column, which was taken from the during the Crusades. It was taken from a place in what they called the Holy Land, and it was very mistakenly assumed that it was from the Temple of Solomon, from the Old Testament of the Judeo-Christian tradition, and so they became very popular to have these twisted columns because it was almost a little bit faddish. Okay, so here's a Renaissance trestle table. A trestle table has this like structural support going down the center like that, and then it attaches to these big side pieces, and that is your structure to keep things standing. Massive table. And you can see on the end piece here, this cartouche. Sometimes the cartouche was empty, sometimes it had some like carving in it for either like the owner or like the patron that commissioned it. You see these scrolls. The scrolls have been around really. Like the Egyptians used them, the Greeks really used them, Romans of course. This is a type of mosaic. And again, a little bit more trompe-l'oeil fresco, even to the point where the frame, the column, the plants, all of that is painted on the wall. And then some period upholstered armchair. This is a little bit later. That's got a well, anyway, we'll talk about that later. And similar to those late Middle Ages paintings, here is an image of the Annunciation with a contemporary Italian architecture. This a little bit more subtle. Instead of it being an angel coming down, there is a bolt of light, a ray that comes down and lets her understand what's going on. But beautiful, the representation of the architecture is quite beautiful. Okay, that is Renaissance interiors. As we get closer and closer to the present day, we have more and more examples of interiors, of furnishings, of really of everything. The older it is, the less likely it is to have survived, unless it's Egyptian. I just saw a news article this week of a vertical shaft grave in Italy that was discovered, and they so far have pulled 32 sarcophagi out of it. And the sarcophagus is the coffin. It is the decorative figure-shaped coffin that the Egyptians buried people in. And they're still pulling more of them out. So they continue to find new archaeological sites, new new tombs with more stuff in them. So, you know, the Egyptians did a good. They did us all a service by burying all that stuff in such an ideal climate. Okay. Any questions about the Renaissance interiors? Let's stop the screen share. Okay, we're going to take a short break here, and then I'm going to come back and talk about some Renaissance architecture. And maybe I will go over my notes too and talk to you about what I have in my notes that might not appear in the presentations. All right, so come back at 7:05.